Scrum.
And welcome to the Monday Scrum. Emma Lawrence couldn't make it today, so it's Maroon filling in and joining me, one of the country's premier rugby league writers, personal friend of ours, Brent Read.
Oh, hey.
How are you,
about
mate?
me, eh? Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify.
And also a current NRL player, all-around good guy, and as we love to call him when he's playing, Triple M's own Aaron Woods.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic.
What about that voice? Sultry.
Yeah, it
It's very
is, isn't it?
sultry.
So
Isn't
happened
it?
to go to Canberra for the weekend.
Yeah, so what I heard was that they went to Canberra, came back to Wollongong via Fig Tree Hotel karaoke, and you've done a few Barnsley numbers, have you?
Yeah, there's a couple.
What's your song, Woodsy? Your karaoke song?
Flame trees.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh,
yeah, what a
that's
classic.
classic.
Nah, actually, I like. Oh, jeez. Screaming Jets.
Right.
Screaming Jets.
Okay,
Better.
nice.
You really have got a little bit of an
Yeah.
issue going
I
on.
know,
Lurgy.
something.
Got a lurgy.
See, really,
Frog in the throat.
back in the golden days of radio in the 80s and 90s, we would have said, somebody would have said, listen, tell him not to come in. For God's sake, we can't have that voice going over the FM airways.
I've just got to carry Reedy, but that's a problem.
As
it.
always.
Mm.
Yeah, as always.
Now, let's start with you, Woodsy, because this bloke, Shuey Vasa Sheck, this
Oh, yes.
guy at the Warriors games doing the shoeys, how much does he look like you?
Doppelganger. He's your
It's honestly
doppelganger.
a doppelganger.
He
Kelly,
is.
his name's Kelly Gibbons.
Yep.
So he reached out to me on Instagram,
Yeah.
and I had a really good conversation with him.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about everything. And then I said, when I go to New Zealand, I'll shout you a feed and a couple of beers. And then, the week later, he got barred for life
Yeah.
from Mount Smart
It didn't
Stadium.
last long, the bar for life, did
No, it didn't
He's
last
back.
long,
Apparently
yeah.
he's
but
back.
it shouldn't. Like, he's a fan getting right around it, and I reckon it's awesome.
I love it. They just crossed to him. There he is right in front of the coach.
He
right in front of,
he
right in
cheated
front of Stacey, who
Yeah.
loves a beer too.
Yeah.
He cheated a bit, though, didn't he? Yeah, a couple of times.
I said that to
Yeah.
him. Yeah, it was shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't
Does
put it-
Stacey
can't-
like a beer, does he?
Oh, yes.
Does he really?
Yeah,
Stacey?
well, look at him. I mean, with respect to Stacey, he's only grown out, hasn't he, since he retired? He hasn't got
It's a
any
bit
taller.
harsh.
Come on,
Well,
mate. Come
it's
on.
not fat
He's one of the
shaming.
greats. He's one of the greats.
Well, he is. I'm just saying he's been in a good paddock. I'm not saying anything bad about him.
That was a bit rough when they banned him, though. The Frog marched him out and then banned him.
Honestly,
that was a
he's
bit
just-
over the
they
top,
could
wasn't
they
it?
could have just said, stop sculling the beers.
Yeah.
Or do
Oh,
it once.
yeah.
But you're allowed to scull a beer at a footy game, aren't you, surely?
I think we have RSA here in Australia.
Mm.
Responsible service of alcohol.
That's it. I'm not sure if they got it in New Zealand.
Okay.
Oh, just great for the game, I thought he was.
Yeah.
For, he looked like...
Especially when they haven't had a game for 2
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Hey, can I ask a question? Before people started talking about him looking like you, do you know if people prior to that had said to him, you look like Aaron Woods? Or was it
Well-
only when he started appearing on television and people went, he looks like Aaron
No, I
Woods?
think he actually sent me a photo. He wears a T-shirt that says, I'm the real Aaron Woods.
Oh, wow.
Does he really?
Yeah, we'll give it to Charlie to put up on the
You
socials.
should get one of those shirts.
I
and
look
you
like
could wear it.
Kelly.
Yeah.
You can
Oh,
wear
no,
I'm the
yeah.
real Aaron Woods.
Well, I heard that Woodsy was at the casino over there in Auckland, and somebody said, "Hey, mate, are you Shuey Vasa Sheck?" Huh? But anyway, look, he does look like you, and the ban has been lifted. So look for Shuey Vasa Sheck back at the Warriors home games. Something to look forward to if you're a
isn't
fan
it?
of the Warriors.
Inspiring comeback story, really. Rugby league thrives on those sort of comeback stories of redemption.
Yeah, well, he's like the off-field Alex Johnson. The fans saved him. They said,
So-
"No, we're
Yes.
having him back."
So this week, does he scull more or just taper off? Does he embrace the
Yeah.
I'm the Shuey
The
Vasa
comeback
Sheck? Or,
skull, yeah.
I heard he's been getting offers to sort of travel with the team, and when they play in Canberra, he does the Viking horn.
It's a bit like the Mad Butcher. He used
Yeah.
to travel with the
Yeah.
team, didn't he, the Mad
he
Butcher?
could sit in front of Sticky's box or in front of Sticky's lounge room.
Yeah.
Yes.
If
Well,
he's allowed
Sticky's
back
on
in
the
games.
sideline.
Oh, he's
Have
back-
to
he's
sit him
back
on-
in the games
have
now.
to sit him on the sideline.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Or could they do a thing where now we've got the Mad Butcher and Shuey Vasa Sheck? They travel together. The Mad Butcher provide the
Steak and
lamb
beer.
grillers and the beers. Yeah,
Brilliant.
That's
great
a great
idea.
idea.
it is, isn't it?
You're on fire, Maroon.
I think I'll go now. Now.
Who needs Emma?
Exactly. Who?
We
Yeah.
do. Come on, we do. She's one
Oh,
of the
we do.
greats.
Yeah, she does carry us, yeah.
Where do you want to start here, boys? Kalen Ponga and Kurt Mann have been shuffled out of a toilet in a pub in Newcastle. And I noticed that your and Michael Carianis's article says when they were shuffled out of the toilet, they were fully clothed. Well, we weren't expecting that they weren't going to be fully clothed.
Don't you normally wear clothes in the pub?
We do, yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, it's a pretty strange old story, right? Because the video started going around over the weekend. Someone's obviously taken a video of it, which happens in modern society, right? And the two boys could be seen leaving the toilet cubicle, security guard outside the cubicle was a bit taken aback by who was there,
Yeah.
Kalen Ponga. And basically it's come out that the story is that Kalen bought a house on Saturday and he got, they were pretty pumped about it, pretty excited. Went out, they had some drinks, he drank too much, was sick in the toilet, and Kurt went in there to look after him, make sure he was okay.
Well, I mean, that makes sense to me.
So when was that?
I think it was Saturday night, I believe. Yeah.
And they played Saturday night.
They played Saturday night, yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, you do.
Well, that's a question, whether they were watching the game, whether they went out afterwards. That's an issue, I would think, for the club. I mean, it's an issue for the club as well because Kalen at the moment is not playing because he's had a series of head knocks. Now, he's in full training. He just doesn't do the contact work. So I think there's a bit of a grey area as to whether he's allowed to drink alcohol while it's going on. But Kurt Mann's actually been out with soft tissue injuries. And when you've got a soft tissue injury, you're not supposed to drink. So there's an issue there for Kurt Mann, definitely.
The funny thing for me on this one is that, remember last week the stink they kicked up about Clemmer swearing at the trainer?
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to do this week about these two players getting caught out here on the beers when they should be at home? It's
we don't know if Kalen should have been at home though, would he? There's a question.
But if you're not playing for the rest of the year and you're out with a head injury, what's the worst thing for you?
Probably the responsible thing is to not be on the turf.
Well, we went through it with Wade Graham the other year at Cronulla Sharks. Drinking is the worst thing for it.
Yeah.
So it's something for the club at Newcastle to. This will be a real good one to see how they handle this.
Well, they are looking at it. I mean, the club's looking at it, and I would have thought there'd be some repercussions of it from it.
Well, Clemmer got stood down for swearing.
I know, that's nonsense, isn't it?
That's a joke.
It's nonsense.
So how are they going to handle this situation? That's the big one. And that's Peter Parr. He's in the job now.
Parry's in the job. Yeah, Parry's been a bit. He's had some other things on his plate because he was good mates with Paul Green. So Parry's been a bit.
Well, then Danny Badira's got to step up to the plate.
Danny or Steve Phil Gardner or maybe Adam will make the call on it because, Kalen's co-captain of the club, I think, with Jaden Brayley.
Yeah, they're both captains,
there's an issue now. I think Buzz has come out and said he should lose the captaincy.
Look, if he hasn't done nothing wrong, he shouldn't. But if they've done something wrong, that's when we look into it.
Yeah. Well, they are looking into it. So there'll be some repercussions of it. And hopefully they can resolve it quickly because we saw what happened last week when the Clemmer thing just dragged on and on for days.
And that was just such a...
And it was just
nothing.
It turned into a schmozzle. So, I think we'll get something pretty quickly from the Knights on their position on it.
Okay. The other one, of course, guys. Well, I didn't know where this one was heading in the end. I started to think, Reedy, I don't know about you, that maybe Cameron Ciraldo was going to be at the Doggies in 2024. But Cameron will be there next year as head coach for 5 years on somewhere around $800,000 a year. And, I mean, I love Cameron. Don't get me wrong, and I love the Bulldogs. I love to see it all work out. But there's a lot of trust going in or a lot of some risk, I think, more so for the Doggies than there is for Cameron, obviously.
But there's a risk whoever you appoint, Maroon, isn't there? And no one's a certainty in life. I mean, the Tigers thought Madge was a certainty, and we saw how they struggled. And, I don't think there's any certainty, but he is as close as you can get, I would think, to a guy who's, we've seen what's happened with Craig Fitzgibbon, who did the same thing, patiently waited, got his opportunity, and the Sharks look unbelievable. Well, I think that's the view of Canterbury with Cameron Ciraldo. He's taken his time. He's had some other opportunities. He's knocked them back. And he's going to go to this club. And from all reports, he's a really, really good footy coach. Obviously, there's a lot more goes into it when you're the head coach, and that's the bit we don't know.
So Trent Barrow's a really good footy coach too, and they signed. How long did they sign him for? 3 years.
3, I think. Yeah.
They reckon 5 years is a long time.
It is a long time, but the issue is the West Tigers offered him 5 years, right?
Yeah, but they're not the West Tigers. They're a different organisation.
Yeah, but he probably sort of leveraged that to Canterbury. And clubs always got clubs have always got an out clause in there.
Yeah, but they're still got to pay money.
They would have to pay him out of fair whack.
With Brisbane Broncos.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a risk, but it's a long time to give him. I acknowledge that, but he would seem. Everyone says he was going to be a really good head coach.
But everyone said that about Michael Maguire when he went to West Tigers as a strict coach. He's going to turn the joint around.
Well,
Trent
hang on.
Barrett's
Michael Maguire
coach.
won a premiership in Australia and the UK.
Yeah,
you got to compare apples with apples.
Yeah, he had a couple of the greatest players, Sam Burgess in England at the time.
You can't compare getting Madge to the West Tigers with getting Cameron Ciraldo to the Bulldogs. Madge goes to the West Tigers with 2 premierships.
With 1 NRL.
And 1 in the UK. Don't be dirty because he didn't want you, Woodsy.
I didn't want him anyway. So.
Fair enough, guy.
No, it's a risk. It's obviously a risk, but it's a pretty calculated gamble. He's got Gus Gould there to help him out. They've got some good players coming next year. Viliami Kikau, Reed Marnie.
Yeah.
So they've got some good players coming next year. They had some good results at the end of the year. So that squad's...
Do you reckon that's a big, Gus, get that in your Penrith? I've got him now.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit. Yeah, I mean, Gus would love it. And Gus just play everyone off a break?
But yeah, I think
I'm
as
not
well,
talking to anyone. We haven't approached
the other thing
anyone.
as well is what's pretty funny is
Yeah.
Ciraldo hasn't even spoke about it. He just said he's not going to talk about it at the end of the year. Well, mate, you've signed on.
It's a bit like Andrew Webster, though. He did the same thing at the Warriors, Woodsy. He said, I'm not going to talk about it till the end of the year as well. He's obviously at Penrith as well, Andrew Webster. So, I think those guys think it's a bit disrespectful to their current club to go and talk about.
That's fair. Fitzgibbons did the same thing last year as well.
Yeah, Fitzy did the same thing. So, I don't mind that.
Is there a chance here to chat quickly about Reedy and Woodsy? Where does that leave? Obviously, Penrith are now providing
a lot of players
and coaches to the rest of the NRL community.
So what are Penrith going to do with their assistant coaches next year?
Well, they've got Peter Wallace there, so I think he's going to step up.
Unreal,
he's going to become an assistant coach. And there's some other guys in the system who can, I think they're going to look internally before they look externally.
So with Kevin Ciraldo coming now, does that change the negotiations with where Matt Burton's at with Canterbury?
Well, I think they're pretty confident he'll stay now because obviously he's pretty close to him from Penrith, and he's got that option at the end of. So he's got a player option for 2024.
Is that the one that he knocked back? That he said he wants to go to open market.
So he want to go to open market on November 1. So I mean, the club's been talking to him, and obviously there's a view that he needs to be paid more next year.
Which fair enough, he's an Origin player.
So I wouldn't say it's simply a matter of Cameron Ciraldo coming there will ensure he'll stay. I think the club's going to have to address his deal and upgrade his deal as well, because if they just dig their heels in and say we're not going to change the deal, but Cameron Ciraldo's coming, I'm not sure that'd be enough, would he?
Yep.
I think his management realise that he's worth more than they're going to pay him next year, and they've got that option there. So with that option being there, I think. Again, it's for 2024. He's contracted for next year. So I think they'll look to give him some more money potentially next year and the year after to keep him.
Yeah, well, I think it's a really good move by Canterbury. The players they've got coming in, and I think from what I've spoke to the players that have played underneath him at Penrith, they can't speak any highly enough of him.
How far off you reckon they are a top 8 team? Stick Kickow and Marnie in that team next year.
I think they're right up there.
Yeah.
Right up there. And then, if you can, other players do come off season, whatever, they're really building. They've got a really good forward pack. Yeah. And I think, I had a little bit of question marks over Jerry Marshall-King, but I thought he's had a really good year.
Yeah.
And, just Addo Carr's done to the club with the energy and, the spirit he's brought along. So I think they're in for a really good future. The next couple of years, I think they could be really pushing.
What about moving forward here, boys? You talk about the spine. Marnie's going there. Burton's there. Averillo's playing good at fullback. What about Kyle Flanagan? Where is Kyle Flanagan in the big puzzle?
Well, I think if they had their way, the best case scenario for them is someone comes in and takes Kyle off them at the end of the year.
So he's there for another year?
He's there for another year.
Okay, yep.
And I think there's been whispers again lately that Gus would be happy if someone came in and gave him another opportunity. I think he's played pretty good footy, to be fair to Kyle. I think he's done really well for them. So
I reckon it's the best footy he's played in years. Since Barrett's left and they've started to play some free-flowing footy off the cuff, he's been really, really good.
I don't think they'd be filthy if he stayed, but I think he's on such good money there. I think they'd be open to him leaving if someone came in with an offer to take him off their hands.
Okay, this is the Monday Scrum.
Reedy's Mail.
Okay, Reedy's Mail. Well, it's been a big day in rugby league, a big weekend in rugby league. Where are we going to with the mail,
Well,
Reedy?
we were just talking about Ciraldo and Penrith and leaving Penrith. And if you remember when Wayne left the South to go to the Dolphins, he had time. South basically made a rule that Wayne couldn't poach any of their players. I think it was for a 6-month period. And when players have left previous, I think when Trent Barrett left Penrith, they said, hey, you're not to talk to any of our players, not take any of our players. So I rang the Panthers today. I spoke to Brian Fletcher, the CEO, about Cameron Ciraldo and whether they would put any rules around Cameron approaching or talking to their players. They said, no, we're not going to do that. We trust him. He's a genuine guy. He's been here a long time. We don't think he'd do the wrong thing by us. And now if you look at who they've got coming off contract or who are available to sign elsewhere on November 1, Steve Crichton, Spencer Leniu, Liam Martin, Woodsy's man Scotty Sorensen, Charlie Staines, Brian Toto. So that's 6 players.
Wow, that's some good and really good Origin players.
Who on November 1 can sign elsewhere. Steve Crichton's the only rusting one for me because when Cameron was talking to some other clubs, there was a bit of talk that Steve Crichton, I'm not saying would come with him, but that Steve Crichton would be one bloke who would be tempted to follow Cameron Ciraldo. Steve Crichton would love to play fullback. Canterbury need a fullback. can't play fullback at Penrith because they've got Dylan Edwards there. He is the one guy, I reckon, who now, I would not surprise me at all if we see Steve Crichton at Canterbury in 2024.
What about the salary cap? But they've got a salary cap.
But they've got, in 2024, they have so much salary cap room, it's not funny.
Well, do they?
I think they've only got about half a dozen players on contract for 2024. They've got an amazing amount of room.
So you reckon he wouldn't go next year, he'd probably go the year after?
I think he'd go the year after. Okay. And I know Penrith at the moment are working really hard to keep Steve Crichton and Brian Toto and Liam Martin, particularly those guys. And they're hopeful they'll stay. They're confident they'll stay. But now that Cameron's been announced to the Dogs, do
you think as well maybe they go Charlie Staines? He might be a little bit less on the cap?
Well, potentially, but there's a few clubs looking at Charlie Staines. Yep. He's had permission for a while now to move
I've heard
at the end of this year.
Because wasn't there rumours that Crichton was close to going to Redcliffe at one stage?
Redcliffe were interested in him. But they've got, obviously, their eyes on Cam Munster and, if not Cam Munster, Latrell Mitchell at the moment, the Dolphins.
Can I ask you, there's a little bit of talk around today, Reedy, about an injury to Latrell Mitchell.
Yes.
That would be...
Listen to the South man. Listen to him.
Chaotic for...
Well, they're talking it down. They just said he had a bit of a groin strain. He left training with some ice on his groin, a bit like... But I will say this. Last week they talked down Lachlan Ilias. Ilias didn't play at the weekend. So they're talking down Latrell at the moment. Obviously, a huge game on Thursday against Penrith. Massive game.
Yep. Yes.
And at the moment they're saying Latrell should be right, but... As I said, he didn't finish training.
If he's out for a couple of weeks, that's a huge blow. He's a phenomenal player. You seen him the other night. It was like men against boys.
Well, the other issue they got is Cody Nikorima, who they bought to help out there. He's not available either at the moment.
Oh, isn't he?
No, I think he's injured. So
okay,
that'd be a real issue
and
for them.
Will Ilias be back?
Ilias should be back. They said it was probably only 1 week thing with the hamstring, so he should be back.
A lot of us found it really hard to believe last week that there's talk about Desi's future at Manly. And I know it's not his immediate future, but surely not.
Well, they didn't play great at the weekend, Maroon. And I think there's going to be some changes at that club. I don't think there's any doubt there'll be in this off-season some changes at that footy club. Now, Des has got a contract for another year. And I don't necessarily think it'll be the coach, but there's going to be some changes around Des. And then obviously Des has got 1 more year after that, and we'll have to see how we go. But I'm expecting some pretty significant changes at Manly in this off-season because I know they're not happy with the way they've gone this season, particularly towards the end of the year. There's obviously been some issues with the Pride jersey fiasco and the fallout from that. But I think there's going to be some pressure on Des to make some changes in the off-season.
If I'm in, this is the point I make here, Woodsy. If I'm a Manly fan, I love the Pride jersey and everything that it stands for, and I love the 7 players that stood down. I love I respect every party in this, but I'm a bloke that's paid my ticketed membership to go and watch Manly play. I've bought my son a jumper. I've bought my daughter a jacket. I go there every other week and spend a fortune at the shop there. All I want to do is see my team win. I didn't buy into this at all, and it looks like it's going to play a big part.
Yeah, it sort of derailed their season because that was the game against the Roosters. That was such a huge clash, and to lose 7 of those class players. But the other thing is, I thought Des handled that situation so well.
Yeah, I think we all did.
I don't think he should be under pressure. And the other thing, there's been no Tom Trbojevic for most of this year.
Yes,
and they're still in and around the 8. Like that's your best player taken out of your side. Like you take Roosters out of. You take James Tedesco out of the Roosters.
Latrell out of South.
Latrell out of South. Cleary at the moment out of Penrith. It makes a big difference when you lose your best player. So. Look, there might be some changes, but surely there's no changes with Des. I don't think they should be moving him on.
Well, he had to make the top. I think we reported last in the paper on Thursday. He had to make the top 8 to get an extension on his contract. That was actually wrong. He needed to make the top 6.
Ooh. Oh wow!
So there was a really difficult task for him to get an upgrade.
I reckon if you have Tom Trbojevic there, they can make they could have made the 6 if he played the majority of the games.
Well, I'll get him back next year.
Yeah,
we'll see how they go.
Yeah.
Your man Tommy.
All right, speaking about the top 6, the top 8, the top 4, call it what you want. It's only 3 or 4 weeks
Can
away.
we do top 10 at the moment?
Hey, what are you guys? Are you 10?
I think we're 11th.
11th, oh, damn it.
We did do the top 10 once, like 1998 or something, when all the teams came back together.
We should have like a
wild card.
9v10 wild card.
Well, they tried that. The wild card round was going to be 6v10 and 7v8 or something. Yeah.
Give the rest
that
of
was
the
one
week
of
off.
Graham Annesley's babies to keep everyone interested.
Yeah, right.
Never really took off that one.
Well,
Wild card round.
yeah, well,
blame
maybe
him.
when we've got 18 teams, we can look at something else. But
That's not a bad idea.
but I think right now, 8 of 16, half the teams make the finals. That's probably a little bit over generous as it is.
I reckon it's fair. I like it.
Do you?
Yeah,
Because when I was a kid,
Keeps
it
everyone
was top
interested.
5. Yeah,
Top
but
5? Nah.
I
Yeah,
know.
mate,
that
you've
means
digressed.
More games at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm
Semi-finals.
getting off the point. You're only thinking about clipping the invoice, sending
Just
the
got to ring
invoice.
Charlie up.
Now, guys, the Roosters have found form at the right end of the season. Tedesco played his 200th game last weekend and he had an absolute blinder. But they're starting to look like the Roosters again. They're getting players back. Luke Keary's back and Joey Manu, of course, has been playing well all year. How far can the Roosters go, given that they're not going to finish anywhere near the top 4?
For me, I reckon they can win the comp.
From the
They
top 4?
They can be that first
From the
team that
bottom of-
wins.
bottom of the 8.
They can be the first team that wins from the bottom of the 8, I reckon. You look at the players. You mentioned Joey Manu, you mentioned Tedesco, but for me, Matt Lodge has been absolutely outstanding. And it's like he's gave Jared Wirra-Hargraves a new lease on life. Those two, the way they started the game on the weekend was incredible. And then you've also got Siwa Takiaho to come back. Lindsay Collins, if he can come back with the head knocks as well. They love that power game, the Roosters, and the platform that those middles lay for the likes of, like we said, Manu, Kiri's starting to find some really good form. And even someone like Sam Verrills, the footy he's been playing lately, and he's obviously moving to the Gold Coast Titans next year. He wants to go out on a high. I give them a red-hot crack of winning the comp from outside that 4.
Okay, but the thing is, Reedy, they got, I think, the Tigers this week, but then they got Melbourne and South. So they got 2 big games before we even get to the finals.
I don't think that'll bother them one single bit.
You think they can win the grand final?
I think they can win the grand final.
He didn't mention Suwali too.
Yeah.
Swally.
Yeah, good. I don't think they can win it.
No.
Not from the bottom of the 8. You've got to win 4 games in a row, Woodsy, to win the grand final. 4 in a row against the best 10 teams in the competition. It's too hard. Can't be done.
I reckon.
Can't be done. Modern
We'll
football.
see. We'll see when it comes to grand final time.
Impossible.
Yeah. Somebody's probably got to do. Someone's got to do you a favour and eliminate Penrith before you get to the grand final. Somehow, if someone could do that, I think that opens it right up. Let's say Penrith go out the back door.
I'd love to see week 1 of semi-finals, 1v4. I'd love to see Penrith versus Melbourne.
Could happen.
I reckon Melbourne could give them a red-hot crack.
I'll tell you the other issue for them, right? So just say they win in week 1.
Yep.
Probably in week 2, they're going to have to travel to Townsville or travel to Penrith or travel to Melbourne to play.
Yeah.
Then week 3, they have to travel to one of those places again.
Yeah.
You've got to play away.
Yeah.
Heaving atmospheres, people giving it to you.
A lot of the times you throw off that. Remember when the Cowboys did that when they come from 8? They obviously didn't win the grand final that year, but each game they got bigger and more atmosphere, the better they played.
Yeah, maybe.
A lot of experience there too.
They are.
I think that's
some big name players there.
Massive.
And I love Joe Suwali.
And they love to be a side that proves everyone wrong.
Mate, how good's Joe Suwali?
Oh, he
He's
should
so
be playing
good.
for Australia in a couple of months' time.
So good. Yeah, they
Well-
are playing good footy.
Gentlemen,
You'd love that, wouldn't you, Maroon?
what's that, mate?
Roosters
I can't wait
grand
to see
final
him
win?
give it to the...
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
I couldn't think of. I would rather you
Roosters
married my
South.
sister than the Roosters won the grand final. I would rather you marry my sister.
Roosters
Ready.
South would be a good grand final, wouldn't it?
Oh, but I tell you what, imagine living
I
where I
wouldn't
live
watch
and
it.
you lost.
I wouldn't watch it.
You wouldn't,
You wouldn't
watch
watch
it.
it? Serious?
Well, let me tell you something, Woodsy. You'd have nothing else to do, so you may as well watch it. That's been the Monday Scrum. Thank you, Woodsy.
Pleasure, Maroon.
Reedy will read all about it. Mr. Peabody. And on behalf of everybody, Triple M rocks the footy.